Imagine designing a war machine where escape, not sacrifice, is the ultimate weapon. It was an idea so at odds with Nazi propaganda that it rewrote the rules of German reconnaissance. In 1939, the Wehrmacht's mighty armored cars broke down after just hours of use. Their guns were outmatched and their frames cracked, leaving scouts dead or stranded deep behind enemy lines. Yet out of these failures, in August 1940, the order came for a vehicle that could do the unthinkable. It had to survive where even the feared Tigers would fall. But why did this demand for survival force the Third Reich's engineers into a race against their own ideology? The answer begins where retreat was forbidden, but death came anyway. On the roads of Poland in 1939 and the forests of France in 1940, the SD KFZ 231 and 232 armored cars reached their breaking point, literally. Unit diaries from the early campaigns tell the same story again and again. Engines boiled over after just 2 or 3 hours of movement, radiators hissed, and crews were stranded far from help. The gasoline engines, designed for European highways, could not cope with rough terrain or long patrols. In the Ardennes, a single platoon lost 4 vehicles in a day, not to enemy fire, but to cracked frames from the relentless pounding of unpaved roads. When French Somua S-35 tanks appeared, the 20mm autocannon, supposed to give the scout cars a fighting chance, proved useless. Armor-piercing rounds bounced off anything thicker than 23mm, leaving crews with no way to defend themselves or to break contact. Reports from the 7th Panzer Division describe scouts forced to abandon their vehicles, unable to retreat, their radios silent just when the army needed their eyes most. Instead of slipping away with vital information, reconnaissance units became easy targets, burned out, immobilized, or simply left behind. The promise of swift, deep reconnaissance collapsed under the weight of technical failure. Every breakdown, every lost crew added pressure for a machine that could go farther, last longer, and escape faster than anything before. The Wehrmacht's doctrine demanded eyes ahead, but the hardware left scouts blind, deaf, and alone. August 1940 brought a new kind of order from Berlin. The Wehrmacht's armaments office, known as Wahlprüf 6, issued a directive that would define the future of German reconnaissance. The failures in Europe had shown that standard armored cars could not survive the coming war in North Africa. The new requirement was clear: design a heavy reconnaissance vehicle capable of operating 50 to 100 kilometers behind enemy lines, in temperatures that could soar above 50 degrees Celsius and return without outside help. The vehicle would need to cross vast empty stretches, far from repair shops, far from friendly forces. Gasoline engines, prone to boiling and fire, were ruled out. Instead, the order demanded an air-cooled diesel engine with no radiator to burst or freeze. This was a radical break from previous designs. Responsibility for the heart of the machine fell to Hans Ledwinka, the Czech engineer at Tatra in occupied Czechoslovakia. Ledwinka's team was tasked with creating an engine that could survive the desert, a place where even the hardiest vehicles broke down. His solution drew from Tatra's experience with air-cooled truck engines, but the scale was far greater: a 12-cylinder diesel, robust enough for armored combat, yet simple enough to repair in the field. The official contract, awarded to Tatra in August 1940, set the parameters, endurance, reliability, and the ability to operate where no other German vehicle could. The challenge was not just technical, but existential: to build a machine that could outlast the desert and bring its crew home alive. Hans Ledwinka's team at Tatra delivered what German commanders had demanded: a 12-cylinder, air-cooled diesel engine capable of producing 220 horsepower. This was no ordinary power plant. Without a radiator, the engine shrugged off desert heat and Russian frost alike, running for hours without boiling or freezing, a decisive edge over the gasoline engines that had stranded so many crews before. Diesel offered another advantage: lower fuel consumption and less risk of fire, both vital for vehicles operating far behind enemy lines. But in 1942, the first field trials revealed a flaw that threatened the entire concept. The Tatra V12, roaring at nearly 2,200 revolutions per minute, produced a noise level exceeding 90 decibels. At idle, the sound carried for over a kilometer across open ground. For a machine built to slip past enemy lines, this was a tactical crisis. Reports from Wehrmacht 6 describe the engine as detectable at great distance, unsuitable for silent reconnaissance. Engineers scrambled to redesign mufflers and reroute exhausts, searching for a way to tame the beast under the hood. Ledwinka's solution would eventually quiet the engine enough for production, but the acoustic crisis had already delayed the program and forced a reassessment of what reconnaissance vehicles could risk in the field. In January 1943, the German High Command canceled the VK-1602 Leopard light tank project. That decision left several newly built turrets, each armed with a 50mm KWK-39 L60 gun, without a home. Rather than let these valuable components gather dust, ordnance officers at OKH proposed a solution: mount the Leopard turret onto the new 8-wheeled reconnaissance chassis. Manufacturing memos from early that year show a scramble to adapt the Leopard compact, sloped turret to fit the lighter, wheeled hull. The result was unconventional: a heavy reconnaissance car carrying firepower designed for a tank nearly twice its weight. The integration went quickly, with engineers at Bossing-Nag and Daimler-Benz collaborating to resolve fitment and balance, using the existing turret ring and keeping the vehicle agile. This improvisation transformed the SD KFZ-234-2 into the only reconnaissance vehicle of its class armed with a true anti-tank gun, capable of engaging threats far beyond what doctrine expected. The Puma silhouette now carried the outline of a predator, its survival focused not just on flight, but on the option to fight when escape was impossible. Speed was only part of the equation. The Puma's designers gave it a layout almost unheard of in armored vehicles: 2 full driving stations, 1 at each end. The front driver handled the advance, and the radio operator in back could take over instantly, steering the vehicle in reverse at the same breakneck pace. The 6-speed gearbox worked in both directions, 6 forward and 6 reverse, allowing the Puma to reach 85 to 90 kilometers per hour, whether fleeing or pursuing. There was no need to turn around under fire. The turret could stay aimed at the enemy, while the crew escaped at full throttle in reverse. All 8 wheels steered, giving the car a turning circle tighter than many tanks half its size. On a single tank of diesel, the Puma could cover up to 1,000 kilometers, enough to patrol deep behind enemy lines and return without resupply. Every feature pointed to one goal: survival through movement. Where other vehicles stalled or hesitated, the Puma simply vanished, leaving only the echo of its engine behind. Armor on the Puma was a study in compromise. The front plate measured just 30 millimeters thick, enough to stop rifle fire and shrapnel, but not much more. Side armor dropped to 8 or 10 millimeters, leaving the vehicle exposed to heavy machine guns and anti-tank rifles. Despite its advanced design, the Puma was never common on the battlefield. Only 101 units were built between September 1943 and September 1944. The reason lay in the fractured production chain. Chassis were assembled in Leipzig, hulls were shaped in Krefeld, turrets were machined in Berlin and Elbing, engines were shipped from Tatra in occupied Czechoslovakia. Each part traveled across a continent under constant threat of Allied bombing. Delays and shortages meant that while the design promised speed and survival, the reality was scarcity. Most German divisions never saw a single Puma. June 1944 brought the Puma's greatest test. 26 vehicles rolled out with Panzer Lehr Division into Normandy, facing not just Allied tanks, but a sky filled with P-47 Thunderbolts, Typhoons, and Mustangs. The division's war diary records the brutal arithmetic. Only 8 of the original Pumas made it out of the Falaise pocket, a survival rate of just 31%. Even so, that was nearly double the rate for the division's tanks. Just 18% of those escaped destruction. The difference came down to one thing: mobility. Where Panthers and Tigers burned on the roads, Pumas sometimes slipped away at full speed, but the cost was clear. By September 1944, production was canceled. The machine built to survive had reached its limit against the new reality of AIR supremacy. No Puma survives today. Its legacy endures, proof that survival, not sacrifice, drives innovation even in war. As modern conflicts evolve, the lesson remains: technology built for escape can outlast those built for glory. Sometimes the most powerful weapon is the chance to fight another day.